going back to school. Appropriate, isn't it, this time of year? I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation Podcast. Thanks for joining me on our continuing adventure in the uplands with great dogs, wonderful friends, and enjoying that beautiful scenery, as well as, well, occasionally a bird or two here and there. Yeah, we're going to shooting school this time of year. Dave Fiedler, good friend, shooting instructor, hunter, dog owner. He's going to take us to task, if you will, on some of the kind of the mistakes we make in the field, help us become better wing shooters. We'll also talk shotguns. In fact, we're going to focus a lot on this growing mania over small gauge guns. Yeah, I'm a believer, but we'll talk with Dave about the pros and cons and everything else. All things shotgun. This guy knows his stuff inside and out. So looking forward to talking with Dave. Our Handle It segment, I asked a while back about well, it doesn't matter. I'll go to that later. But I will answer your question, Eric Thompson, about what we can do on an individual level to pass on our knowledge to the next generation. Soapbox time for me. And then we'll check and see what you all are doing out there. And one more suggestion in the way of the pre-hunt drill. It's all coming up on the Upland Nation podcast, brought to you in part by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, heirloom quality, crafted at the highest caliber. Pointer shotguns. Yeah, best over and under $500, pointershotguns.com. Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, yeah, that's Dave Fiedler's operation, also offering you a direct line on some of those subgauges and a whole bunch of other advice on shotgun purchases. TrulockChokes tubes, well, that's how I add another bird to the bag with every hunt, with great choke tubes. MidwayUSA.com, they've got just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Purina Pro Plan Sport dog food, Flicks, fuel of choice, and landtrust.com. Book your next adventure on private ground for a day, a week, or who knows, maybe forever. landtrust.com. Well, here we're spreading out our popcorn flushes a little bit on the training side. Still working on keeping him steady. Flick. You know my wire hair Flick. Keeping him steady on those spread out, extended flushes of multiple birds. And seems to be working pretty well. Boy, oh boy. Once in a while we get I'll consider it a gift. A young bird that I thought was a better flyer and lands too close to us. Flick is doing a great job of staying steady when those live birds are, 15, 20 feet away from him. Knock wood. Also doing a lot more road work, and that seems to be paying off. Yeah, a little bit of time in, the prairies of Montana helps in that regard as well. Sharp-tail season to a great degree is a kind of a great final conditioning, for a dog that needs to be in good shape for the rest of the season. You hearing several reports of new shotguns and hoping they pay off well for all of you. It's the tail end for many of us for the test and the trial season. And it seems like a lot more of you are going out for forest grouse than I've ever noticed before. So enjoy yourselves and hope it pays off. Can't wait to hear more about that. I also want to thank you, Cork Green, for one additional suggestion. That question I asked a while back about what you do right before you start your hunt. You shut off the truck, you put the tailgate down, blah, blah. Cork suggests it's still hot and dry out there. Check under your vehicle, make sure you're not parked on high, dry grass or brush that could, ignite from a hot engine, transmission, or something else. So thanks, Cork, and absolutely true. In fact, I was roading Flick this morning. I thought I smelled forest fire in the distance. Knock wood, no. It was just cold enough this morning that somebody was actually using their fireplace for the first time. Oh, my. All right, we're getting ready to talk to Dave Fiedler about shotguns and shotgunning. Right after a word from pointershotguns.com. How appropriate. Best over and under for less than $500, according to the guys at Target Focused Life. That's the Pointer Acreus. And if you haven't looked at the catalog online at pointershotguns.com, you can get that thing in any number of finishes. Nickel receiver, case coloring, Cerakote in various colors, blued, of course. All those choices on most of their shotguns. So listen to that. That might be Dave right now. Yeah, so Dave, we'll get back to you in just a moment. And in the meanwhile, let's also acknowledge our good friends at MidwayUSA.com, fully stocked with all the ammo you need, whether it's non-toxic or lead, all sorts of great game loads, hunting loads, the good stuff. If you're having trouble finding ammo at the last minute, I would check them out. Remember, I was there. I watched it. If you order before 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, it goes out the door that day. I've watched it go from the very beginning in those really tall stacks all the way down the line around this and into there, and then all the way down into the truck. They aim to please when it comes to quick delivery. They call it Nitro Express for a reason. Learn more at MidwayUSA.com. And thanks for being patient. Dave Fiedler from MidvalleyClays.com. How are you?
I am doing well, my friend. It's kind of us two here, but we're holding it together.
You said that you got a load of ammo today. Speaking of ammo,
yeah, just got in 17 pallets. 17
pallets of ammo. My God, has anybody ever done the math? How much does that weigh?
About 43,000 pounds.
Oh my God. That is a lot of ammo.
Well, it's 7. We have a lot of it 7/8 ounce, so it's so much lighter.
Unless you're carrying a pallet at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the heaviest pallet I ever took off is I bought a pallet of 22 rimfire.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't think my tractor was going to lift it.
I believe it. And is that because just there's so many rounds in a single box, thus in a case? It's yeah.
Yep.
Wow. I'd have never thought that. I'd have thought it would have been shotgun ammo with all the pellets and all that. But what do I know?
Well, you got to remember the wads don't weigh much. The powder really isn't that heavy. So, the only thing that really is a lot of weight is the lead. So,
yeah, good point. And leave it to a music major not to think about things like physics.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Well, hey, everybody, if you don't know Dave yet, Dave is the proprietor of Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School down there in Jervis, Oregon by Salem is basically the best landmark for you. I've taken a lot of lessons with Dave's lovely wife, Vandy, who, by the way, I need to thank every time I pull the trigger now because the things she drove home to me have really helped. At least so far. I'll let you know when the season ends. But also, Dave's got a line and knows a lot, number one, about subgauge guns. And of course, he's a shooting instructor, a hunter, dog owner. How's your dog these days?
Oh, man, they're raring to go.
Are they?
They're starting to get a little fat, but, now that it's cooling off a little bit after this weekend anyway, I've got some those automatic release things I just bought, where you put the little pigeon in there.
Oh, yeah.
And let the dog go on point. So instead of the long cords, which everybody trips over and the dog has to, run over at one time and trips everything, these are the wireless ones. So I'm kind of excited about getting them going. Just had a report from the east side. The guy buddy of mine just rolled in and said, geez, on the way down to my cabin, I saw over 50 quail. I'm like, oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I love it. I saw 50 quail at my water source yesterday. So absolutely, I don't want to raise my own expectations, but I'm pretty bullish on all of that, and I'm really looking forward to it. this conversation began with you suggesting we talk about subgauge guns, and it's a great opportunity for us to both kind of plead our case, if you will. You as an expert, we can talk about ballistics and that sort of thing, because I'll never forget, I think you told me a while back about how superior some of the small gauges are to some of the larger gauges. We'll talk about all of that and a whole bunch of other things in our discussion today. But first we should probably talk about, the hunting world in general. You're out there enough, I'm out there enough. Let's touch on some of the things that we do as bird hunters when we got a shotgun in our hand that probably you as an instructor and bird hunter cringe at when you see us when we're hunting with you.
Well, okay, I'm not sure where to go with this. I mean, I can tell you horror stories of things I've heard.
Yeah.
From the first time. I mean, and a lot of it is really just lack of, they don't know because nobody told them, or, there's an old wives' tale that this is what you have to do. I mean, I know one of our good members here, he was hunting with a couple, a father and a son down at Klamath, down in southern Oregon, and they were pheasant hunting. And they stopped to take a break, and they put the gun against a tree and, that type of stuff, so it's safe. And all of a sudden, the member looks over, he realizes that the gun is on fire. It's not on safety. And he goes, hey, you know what? Your gun's on fire. It's on, the safety's not on. And the son tells the member, he goes, oh, my dad said those pheasants are so fast that you cannot get the safety off in time. And the member, his eyes got really big and said, no, it doesn't work that way, and I'm never hunting with you again. So it's like, I'm not even sure where to go with that, but it's a fact that, it's just an accident waiting to happen. You and I have both gotten up in your years a little bit, so it's a little easier for us to stumble. Now, can you imagine stumbling and having your gun on fire and not on safety? That is just crazy to me.
Well, especially to me, because I stumble a lot.
Yeah, even before we start drinking,
where was I? I think I was in Montana last year with a couple guys, the guys from landtrust.com. And I'm going up the hill. We're chasing sharptails in kind of a coulee there. And they hear something behind. Of course, I'm lagging behind. They hear something back there, and it's me tumbling down the mountain. I'm just glad I use a break open gun most of the time, and I carry it open for that very reason. I just know I'm going to fall.
Yeah, it's just, it happens all the time. And especially like if you're hunting, the early season pheasants for a prime example, when the cover hasn't been knocked down, it hasn't been snowed on, it hasn't had a frost to knock it down. So, I mean, once you start trubbing for a little while, all of a sudden your feet get a little heavy. Now you're catching all that grass. So, it doesn't take much to do the trip thing,
Yeah, absolutely. And so for the record, everybody, safety first. Treat every gun as if it's loaded, and be as safe as you can with that gun, obviously.
And know your target and beyond.
Yeah, and I just finished a video yesterday on something somewhat related, but not quite. But in the course of that video, I was talking about, how to safely carry a gun, and besides a break open gun and breaking it open, there are ways to do that with a semi-automatic as well. What would you suggest for guys who shoot one of those machine guns?
Well, there's two schools of thought. What we do here, and I think it's a fair way to do it, is we keep the barrels up. And the reason we do that is because just what you were talking about, all of a sudden you hear a noise behind you, you turn around, and if your barrels are down at the ground, you're going to sweep one of your friends, you're going to sweep one of the dogs, any of that stuff could happen. So you really do not want to, SOS to me is a safe gun is up. Because if you put the gun straight up in the air basically and you do a 360-degree turn, you're not going to sweep anything. If you have the barrels down below, that's where you get in trouble.
Very good point. And absolutely, the context of what I was thinking about was the shooting challenges of going from that upright barrel to a good, solid appropriate gun mount, but your point is very well taken.
Well, when guys have good dogs like you do, you have the barrels up and down basically as you're walking. I mean, it's just not pointing at the ground. It's really I'm going to call it a 3/4.
Yeah.
At least eye level and up. So if you do decide you're going to turn, if something happens, you can keep it straight up and down. So if something does happen, you're not going to shoot level. So the dog goes on point. Now you just bring the gun down a little bit and you're ready to go. So it's, which is easier for you to bring it down just a little bit and be safe, or bring it down, have it down pointing at the ground and going up and sweeping your dog as you go. That's one of those things where, to me, I'm going to be as safe as I can possibly be.
Ditto. I'm all for it, and we've all been there and done that. It still stings on my thighs when I remember the guy who didn't do that luckily from quite a distance away. Let's talk about accuracy, marksmanship, if you will. We're out there in the field and we got a dog, and let's just take a pointing dog as an example because it gives us a pause here and there. Pardon the pun. If we are, we're in the field, we got our gun in a safe position, we're watching the dog, he slams a point. If I want to be a really good shot, if I want to shoot that bird, what are some of the things that I ought to do as I'm approaching the pointed dog that will help me actually connect when I pull the trigger?
Well, follow this along. I think you and I are on the same page here. I mean, obviously, as a whole, normally, unless you're at a hunt club, the bird's not going to be right at the dog's nose.
Yeah.
He's going to be up how many yards? Are they flighty? Is it windy out? How far up is this bird from the dog on point? So as you're walking up, some of the few things we try to do is like, how long does it take to take that extra half a step to make sure if you're right-handed that your left foot is up front a little bit to get in the ready position. Does that make sense? Are you following?
Yeah.
Trying to explain it? Because I've seen it just never fails. So I think the birds watch, and when your right foot is in front of your left foot, if you're a right-handed shooter, that's when the bird decides it wants to take flight. So how long does it take you to take that other half a step with your left foot and get in a decent firing position so you have a better chance of hitting your target? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting because I just finished an article for Gundog Magazine on the 5 things you should do differently this season. And one of them was realizing from a standing start, even a pheasant takes a while to get up to his maximum airspeed. And we do have a beat or two more time than we think we do to do all of that. Set the feet right, slowly, deliberately watch the bird, move the body, mount the gun, and pull the trigger.
Exactly. And, you always want to have that leading hand. If you're right-handed, your leading hand is your left hand going towards the bird or the target. If you're left-handed, it's obviously going to be the other way around. And you want to have your right hand going to the lead, instead of doing all the extra work of bringing the barrels way up and coming down. And basically we say what you don't want to do is mount, move, shoot. You want to move, as you said, mount, and then shoot. Scott, one of the things we should do one of these days is actually put a clay pigeon thrower next to a bird and film as the difference of how slow a bird taking off is compared to a clay target.
Yeah, in fact, I did the math on something related to that, and the difference is remarkable. And then contrast all that with a load of pellets coming out of your muzzle at, let's call it 1,300 feet per second. You don't have to worry about the shotguns, the shot string catching up with a bird. So you don't need to rush the rest of it, do you?
No. I mean, you're a mathematician. At 1,300 feet per second, how many miles per hour is that?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. No, don't forget. I'm just a music major. I can only count to 4.
Okay. So let's call it 1,400 feet per second. No. Yeah. You figure, there's 5,000 feet in the mile, right?
Yeah.
Even at 1,000 feet per second, it's going to take, 5 seconds to get there in theory? Is that right? Is my math right here?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you were driving and you went and you made a mile in 5 seconds or 4 seconds, how fast would you be going?
I'm afraid to guess. You'd need to wear a helmet and one of those fire suits.
Yes. Just out of the movies like Flash, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really, I tell people that bird is not going to get away from you. You're better off taking your time, doing a decent mount, and putting your hand or your leading hand on that bird, and you're going to kill it, and you're going to kill it well. You're not going to get the tail feathers. You're not going to do any of that stuff, because that's where you get in trouble when you do the mount, move, shoot thing. If you're moving, mounting, and shooting and looking at the bird the whole time, it's going to come down dead. Your dog's going to go over, pick it up, and bring it back to you. He's going to be very happy.
And isn't that why we go?
That's why we go. That's why I do it,
Yeah. This is great stuff, and it's really true. I've talked a lot about how to approach a dog. Number one, so that the bird stays put. Number two, so the dog stays on point. But number three, so you can get a better shot. One thing that your lovely spouse, Vandy, has drilled into me, and that I'm now drilling into many other people via a whole bunch of teaching techniques, is this idea of don't look where the bird probably is sitting on the ground. Soft focus out in the direction you think that bird is going to go. Can you kind of elaborate on that idea?
Yeah, because it's like, the difference of that soft focus is if you're going to run or you're playing football or something like that, and if you watch these guys that are pros or college, even high school, they're not all tense waiting for that to happen to the snap. It's like they're almost a little more relaxed, because if you're a little more relaxed, when you say go, it's going to go much quicker. But if you're relaxed, really tense, that's where you get yourself in trouble. So it's the same thing when you're trying to stare at something, and this is something you can do at home. Just stare at some spot right there. So all of a sudden something moves over there, you can't pick it up as easy as you can with a soft focus in the area where you think the bird is. So the bird gets up, now you're basically just taking your hand or your eyes, as we want to call it, the soft focus, you see the bird, okay, now you zero in on it, we call it grabbing the bird. Then once you grab the bird, then your eyes, the gun, and your face all hit at the same time, and the bird comes down dead. So most people try to make it more complicated than it really is. That's why they have so many YouTube videos going, oh, this is the magic way to do things now. Yeah.
Yes,
good.
Soon to be mine.
Yeah.
Got another one coming on that, by the way, for our friends at Pointer Shotguns. And so it is so clear to me after, taking a number of lessons. And, I got to editorialize for a moment. Whether you go to Mid-Valley Clays or anywhere else, take a lesson or two from a hunter who's also an instructor. Dave, why don't you elaborate on why that is so important, that your shooting instructor be a hunter as well?
Well, the biggest reason we see it, and we have people that come here that say, well, one of the first things we ask is, have you taken lessons from somebody else? And they go, yeah, I've taken lessons from so-and-so. He's like a national champion. And what did he show you? Well, he wants me to shoot with a high gun, but I'm a hunter and it really doesn't work well. But the guy that he took a lesson from is just a competition shooter / trap shooter, whatever. And you've been around it plenty of times. Those guys shoot everything high gun, which is mounted to your face, ready to go. Well, it doesn't work so well for hunting. So, why would you want to go to somebody who's trying to teach you something that you don't want to learn? You want to learn how to become a better shooter, which makes yourself a better conservationist because you're not wounding anything. So you go to somebody who does both. Realistically, you don't have to come to me, but, I've hunted in England. I've been to South America a couple times. I've been to almost every state in the union to hunt. So why wouldn't you go to somebody who has a little bit of experience in hunting, and it is compared to somebody who's not? It's like, if you're learning how to drive a car, would you go to, a NASCAR driver or somebody who actually knows how to teach a beginner? So it's the same type of thing. Go with somebody who's going to help you with what you want to learn. Does that make sense? Yeah,
it makes all the sense in the world. I get it completely. And it is a totally different sport, if you will. And they're both great. There's a game for everybody out there, and I love it. And speaking of shooting games, I got my own feelings on this, and we can debate this for a moment or two first. tell me, of all the shooting games that you have, for example, at Mid-Valley Clays, and that goes from trap to skeet to sporting to stand to HiViz, what do you think is the best game if we have a chance to prepare us for bird hunting?
Realistically, as much as this pains me to say this, I would say HiViz is by far.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know where the bird is going. When you're shooting, sporting clays, unless you're going to shoot the target without knowing where it's coming from, which most places have signs or letters where the traps are, so you have some kind of concept where they're going to be. In HiViz, you can shoot 100 HiViz targets, and every one of them are going to be different. It's just like when you go to a covey of quail or you're going to go some sharp tails, they're not going to come up the same way. So that's probably the best thing to practice. The other thing to do would be like a 5-stand with a low gun.
Yeah.
And low gun would be like a hunting gun, like you're hunting. And then almost let whoever's pulling the targets throw them without telling you which one. So there is that kind of practice. The official game would be fee task, which means you can't move your gun until you see the target. It's just like hunting. Actually, fee task is actually the governing body. It's actually parduchés, which actually means in French, it means hunter's clays. So that's really, it's a good game you can shoot with your pump. It's really the best all-around game, but people are a little intimidated by it because they say there's so many rules. But, you don't have to do that. You can go to the 5-stand and shoot with a low gun. You can go to the sporting clay course, like ours has 4 traps on each one. So there's a lot of practice there. You can also shoot trap. Trap is good because everything kind of goes away from you. You just have to shoot with a low gun. That makes sense? And now you go to skeet, and skeet, everything crossers, as you well know. So, it's what you want to put into is what you're going to get out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's absolutely right. In fact, what I'll tell a lot of, number one, I would vote for HiViz and then skeet. Skeet a lot less expensive than HiViz, but let's talk for a moment about that. HiViz is a game, if you're not familiar with it, HELICE is how you spell it. It came out of France, am I right there, Dave? Italy, okay. So they probably said Elite or something funny like that.
I think they do.
Yeah, but it is a fascinating game. Basically, miniature helicopters fly out of a launcher, and not only do you not know what direction they're going, they will take directions that are, well, more bird-like, like you said, Dave, and that are unreliably inconsistent. And
there you go. That's very good.
It is fun because you're breaking something other than a little black or orange clay disc. It's just so fun to break something that looks more mechanical, for example. And just if you want to see it, I actually put that video from my visit to you guys. I put it up on my YouTube channel, everybody. So watch a little bit of that. It's a fun game.
It is really a fun game, I got to say.
I want to ask an operator, because I do this. I'm careful about recommending it to a lot of people, but a lot of times I'll walk a sporting clays course by myself. And I then can play some games of my own, including putting the thrower on a long delay, pressing the button, and then walking into the station so that I don't know when the bird is going to fly. I don't know what foot is going to be on the ground when I'm walking. It forces me to take the time to set up foot position, a good ready position with my shotgun. How does an operator feel about somebody doing that all by themselves, certainly in a safe manner? Is that a violation of etiquette?
Yeah, that would be. Mm-hmm. If you have your own launcher at home, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I would say if that's what you want to do, I would do it we would recommend you to do it on a trap field.
Yeah.
Because there's, the concrete pads are there, so you're not going to have a chance of tripping over anything. We have a combination trap and skeet overlay, so you can actually do both literally by yourself here with a voice call that we have. So you could be walking and call pull, and you don't know which one of the ones would come out. So there is that kind of practice. But the way our course is set up, that really wouldn't be safe.
Yeah.
I mean, other courses may be able to do that. It's just ours isn't.
Okay, well, for the most part, then let's agree that you probably ought not do that unless you're at home shooting,
right.
In a private situation.
Right, or like I said, in a trap field. Trap fields, I would say most clubs, ours included, wouldn't have a problem with that.
Always a good idea to ask first.
Yes.
All right, good. That's Dave Fiedler with Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. Also your guy when it comes to looking for new shotguns, especially subgauges. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. We'll be back to Dave in just a minute. We'll do more shooting instruction. We'll cover the small gauges and whether they're right or not for you, whether it's a semi or an over and under, or even my favorites, those horizontal barrels. We'll cover all of that and more in the second half of the podcast. First, and we'll also answer Eric Thompson's question about the next generation in our Handle It segment. All right after a couple quick messages. The first from HiVizSites.com. Along with all this instruction I get from the Fiedler family over there, I also am a believer in somehow your subconscious making a relationship between the muzzle and the target. I'm not saying you aim. I'm saying that your inner self has to know where the gun muzzle is to put it in the right place to hit the target. That's what HiViz sights do for me. Those interlocking light pipes, they're like a miniature scream in the night. It's out there, and that's all that matters. No, I'm not talking Stephen King novel. I'm just talking about how your head, your subconscious knows where the muzzle is because it is seeing it in its own way while you're seeing the target. Whether you focus on the beak, the white collar on a pheasant, or the eye of the chucker, you focus on that, your inner self focuses on the muzzle. Bang, fetch. Learn more at HiVizSites.com. And then take care of your gun after the hunt with SageandBreaker.com. Gun cleaning and care, crafted at the highest caliber. Everything's got a lifetime warranty. And Fred Bohm, I got to thank you again. Your photos on Facebook are inspirational. Sage and Maker makes high-quality gun cleaning products and accessories, everything from tools to lubricants to cases and storage. You name it, they got it. Sign up for the email list, and you'll get first notification on all the new products. Well, Dave Fiedler is back with me here at the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. Dave, as an instructor and a shotgun dealer and bird hunter too. Dave, I want you to talk a little bit about subgauge guns. Most people know I'm shooting a 28 gauge a lot these days. I love it. I have to practice really hard because, as you hear every day, oh, my little 28, it's so whippy. It's hard to control the muzzle. It's so light. What do we do about that? Or is that just is that just an old wives' tale that we have perpetuated?
I'm going to go with the wives' tale because if you're watching the target, you're watching the bird, your hand should be going the same speed as that bird. Now, if you don't have a gun in your hand and you follow that bird along, does your hand go really fast? Or does it follow the bird along, right? Uh-huh. So what's the difference if you have a gun in your hand if you're following along, or if you're doing it without a gun? Just because you don't have a gun and there's no weight in your hand doesn't mean all of a sudden it's whippy, right?
Good point. So yeah.
So I always like to think outside the box. And the one big thing that we have, I've got two little stories. One would be somebody told me this, and I think it's really good if you think about it. What's more important, the address or the load?
You tell me.
I'm going to go along with the address, because unless you put the shot on the address, the load doesn't make one squat of difference. You could shoot a 12 gauge all day long, and if you're not looking and shooting in the right spot, it doesn't make squat difference. But if you're using a 28 gauge or a 20 or a 410, all you're going to do is look at the bird, and it's going to come down dead as long as you're looking at the bird. Don't make it more difficult than it is. So that's really, if you think about it, the more you think about it, the more that makes sense. If I put the load in the right spot, that's all it takes. So the address is much more important than the size of the shell you're throwing at it, the amount of lead. That makes sense? I mean, how many babies does it really take to really, if you put a few of them in the head of a rooster or a chucker or whatever, what does it take? Just a couple, right?
Exactly right. The golden pellet analogy comes to mind. It's not how many you throw in the air, it's the ones that are on target, like you said.
Right. And that's exactly, so what's going to be easier to carry? A handful of 20 gauges or a box of 12 gauge, which weighs twice as much? We had a group out here a couple of weeks ago called Hunters of Color. Really the greatest people in the world. I mean, they are really nice. And we got to talking about the same thing we're talking about right here. And I said, have you ever shot a 28 gauge? And I said, it's just so much fun. And they kind of look at me with these, like, what are you talking about? And I said, here, let's do this. I'm going to buy you a box of shells, and us 5 people are going to go out there. And you're going to shoot some of this, and you tell me if it's fun or not. And instantly after the first 2 shots, I think 2 guys were like, where do I buy a 28 gauge? This is just too much fun. So, it's much more, the recoil isn't there, so they're able to stay on target a lot better. So it was just a win-win situation. And I'm not trying to convert people, because if you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel comfortable. But, if you come out and just try one, we have all kinds of guns to demo. And around the country, you can do the same thing. But if you put the address in the right spot, it doesn't matter about the load.
Just for the record, most of us know this, but the pellets are coming out of the muzzle at the same speed, no matter what gauge that gun really is, with minor variations. And the pellets
are the same size. If you shoot a 6 out of a 28 gauge and you shoot a 6 out of a 12, it's that same pellet.
Just a smaller number.
Right. And pattern's better, so.
Well, that's what I want to get to next. We've talked about this off mic in several instances. You have some firm beliefs about the ballistics of a 28 versus, say, a 20 gauge.
They claim that the ballistics from a 12 gauge, and one of these days I'm actually going to get something in writing from one of the shell manufacturers that back that up. But I've always heard, and I've been told, and I've seen different things that say the ballistics for a 28 is as good as the ballistics of a 12. The 20 is, for some reason, not. I mean, it's obviously you're throwing more lead. You're going to throw 1 ounce with it, so it's really what you feel comfortable. Very few people go from a 12 into a 28. They usually like, well, I'm going to put training reels on, so I'm going to go with the 20 gauge first.
Yeah.
So, it's that type of stuff. But the ballistics supposed to be, and I'm not, I am no, I don't want to say chemist. What's the better word for that?
Physicist.
Physicist, yes. I'm not a Sheldon Schneider. Let's put it that way. So I can't give you those exact things, but I guarantee you when you start shooting smaller gauge, you're going to realize that, hey, you know what? I can have more fun with this. I enjoy my dog. It's not about killing a ton of birds. It's about doing it correctly. So how much more fun can you have? Then not only are you having fun with your dog, but you're also having fun when you're shooting. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I'm having fun just talking about having fun shooting.
Good. I like to hear that.
And dispel this myth. It's probably still true with some guns, sometimes with some loads and some days, but the poor 410 bore has gotten a bad rap as the worst of the worst when it comes to ballistics and patterning and all of that. Is that as true as it used to be 50 and 80 years ago? No,
I think that 410 has made drastic steps in the right direction. And the biggest reason is the shell manufacturers nowadays. The shells now are so much better. Even it was in the 70s or the 60s, the shells now are literally 10 times better than they were back then. They have so much science that has went into making these shells and making them efficient and making them, like you said, they pattern so much better. And obviously, if you're hunting, you kind of want to pattern your gun a little bit to see, are there any holes in it? And don't get too carried away because it's not a flat thing that comes out there. These things are moving. So, you're not going to have a bird that goes through the middle of your pattern. I promise you. It's just figuring out what works best for you. And every gun likes a different shell. I mean, I could tell you back years ago, I had a gun that just shot the 8s spectacular, but my little brain wouldn't let me shoot 8s because I felt like more confident with 7.5. But I knew in the back of my head that my gun pattern is much better with 8s. So, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but the shells are so much better with a 410 now. Do I use a 410 in late season pheasants in South Dakota? No. Would I use it for quail? And 99% of the time, yes. So it's one of those things where you've got to gauge what you're going to use to where you're at in the time of year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And let's talk about that for a moment because I agonize over this. I don't shoot a lot of pheasants except on TV. I miss a lot of them on TV too, but that's another story. But, let's talk about what I'll loosely call the ethics of shooting small gauge guns at big gauge birds like roosters. Would you ever shoot a 28 gauge in South Dakota?
That would be a hard road to hoe for me. Are you hunting in, let's gauge to where we're talking about. Are you talking early season, the dogs are on point and they're getting up within, 15 yards of you? I'd shoot a 28 gauge all day long with probably 5s or 4s. Yeah. If it's late season where these things are literally armor plated, no, then I wouldn't, because I still want to be able to be a conservationist, which means the things that I'm shooting at, I want to come down and be able to harvest them, if that makes sense.
Okay, so explain to me the difference. Late season, farther shots, is it simply a matter of feet per second at 40 yards versus feet per second at 25 yards?
No, I think it's going to be, the biggest thing is going to be the bird is feathered up a lot more. I'm assuming you've been to the Dakotas and stuff. When it starts getting colder out, those pheasants really do feather up big time. I mean, it's like shooting at a goose. If you're in the wrong place with a goose, I don't care basically what shell you almost shoot at them, it's like they're bullet plated. That's why people have so much trouble shooting a bird on the pond or on the water after they've wounded. Well, it's all feathers. It's the same thing with roosters. If you're hunting, but South Dakota to me in the winter, late season, I would want something that's going to bring down the bird pretty dead. Because most of the time, by that time, they're not getting up between here and, 10 yards in front of you. Now if you're doing a driven hunt, you got the big cornfield and the birds are coming out and flying over the top of your head. I'd feel confident with shooting a 20 or 28 at those. But nothing that's getting up and going away from me, I wouldn't. At, the 40, it's getting up at 30 yards and going 40 yards. It's so thin by then. I don't care how good of a shooter you are. They're going to do what they can try to do, just like a wild chucker. That's why I'm a firm believer in shooting a little bigger shell at a wild chucker, because they're going to do what they can do to get away from you. They're going to crawl under every hole, as you well know. And I hate putting my hand in a hole where there might be a snake. So.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. I've been there, done that.
You're like, well, the doc says it's there, but do I really think it's there? Or do I think he's pointing at a snake?
Yeah. What about semi-automatics? Let's just talk briefly about, are they a better hunting gun for some people sometimes than a break-open gun of one sort?
That's, people come in and ask me that question all the time. It's really what feels comfortable to you. Do you like the over and under, the idea of you have 2 chokes, you can do things? Do you like the idea of having that third shot? What feels comfortable to you? Do you like I tell people a lot of times I use a plastic 20 gauge that I can have 3 shots at. Do I need 3 shots to kill 3 different birds? No, I'm not out there to kill a ton of birds. I'm out there for the dogs. So what feels comfortable to you? Do you definitely like the side-by-side sometimes? So that's a personal preference. I don't think there's anything better or worse. I just myself wouldn't want to take a really nice, beautiful piece of wood on an over and under and go up in the Chucker Mountains, and as soon as you set it down to take pee, instantly you've got a big scratch in your wood. So again, it's personal preference. What do you feel comfortable with? And that's really what it should amount to being. Is it a 28 gauge that's got a plastic stock? Is it a 12 gauge with wooden stock? It's really what you feel comfortable with. That's kind of a hazy answer, but it really is. You might like one kind of truck. I like a different truck. You like redheads. I like blondes. Whatever works.
Yeah, it's so true. And I was talking with a doctor. Yes, I'm still working on my torn ligament, everybody, but it's getting better. And I was talking to this guy about something else, and I said, well, it's like fly fishing. When I'm not catching fish, I change flies. I put on the first fly I ever learned how to tie, the gold-ribbed hares here. Now they have a bead head on them, but I fish that fly more confidently than anything else. It's just like your shotgun. Pick the shotgun, especially opening weekend. Pick the shotgun that you can shoot well. And I don't care, like you said, plastic, wood, it doesn't matter. Me, I also try to decide which one I'm most comfortable landing on when I trip.
That's a fact. That's what we talked about before. Yeah. I'm the same way. When I hunt, I usually take a 20 and a 28 with me. And it just depends which, we pull over, we decide they're going to hunt here. Okay, we know it's the birds are going to get up wilder here. Or we know the way it is, the birds, because you've hunted in the same spot, Scott, kind of how the birds are going to fly. So you know what you're going to get there. So it really depends what gun I'm going to grab. And now when we go over early season over on the east side, I'm going to not even take the 20. I'm going to take the 28 and the 410. Now, Vandy, when she's going with me, she's going to take the 20 and the 28, but I know she's going to shoot her 28 because I've guilted her into it.
I love it. Hey, let's talk. I talk a good game about, I talk you up all the time about the guy to talk to about when you begin shopping for a new shotgun. If I was calling you and saying, hi, Dave, you've never met me before, but I believe Scott and everything he tells me, including calling Dave when I'm ready to start the shopping process, what is the first question you would ask that person?
What are you going to do with the gun?
Okay, I'm going to hunt. Right. I'm going to hunt bobwhite quail in Georgia. What's the second question?
Okay. What have you shot before?
Yeah. And what are the key criteria, just as a first pass at shopping for a shotgun? What are some of the other things that we should look at? Gun fit, maybe, but some of the other stuff that probably we don't think about. When somebody walks into your gun room, how do you guide them?
One of the things, and I always hate to say it this way, but I always tell them I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to sound like a used car salesman. What do you want to spend?
Yeah.
That's really the bottom line. I don't want to waste their time by something that's out of their range. The wife's going to yell at them. Whatever the case is, I want them to feel comfortable. So I'm going to give them, okay, what's your price range between where and where? And then I will bring out anywhere from 3 to 9 guns that are going to fall in there. Yeah. So now, okay, that's what's going to fall in there. But before we do that, okay, you're going to hunt quail in Georgia. How much have you shot before? Well, I really haven't shot much. Okay, well, then maybe a 20 gauge might be the way to go. Are you going to go to plantations? Yes, I'm going to go to plantations. Well, do you like the way they, it's kind of the traditional stuff and they have this, and this? Oh, yeah, I really like that. I like the clothes they wear. I like the way that works. Okay, well, now we're going to go into something more of a side-by-side or a nice 20 gauge, maybe something with a double trigger, something along that line that's a very traditional gun that they'll fall right into. Or the guy might just be going to a big one of those places where in Georgia where they got the dogs, you follow behind, they're not on horses, you just go that, and they're like, okay, well, here we go, then the 28 gauge is going to be perfect because your guy's going to have a pointing dog and he's going to have a cocker that flushes him and he's going to have a lab that brings him back. He just wants you to kill birds. Well, your 28, you can carry a lot of shells and you put it on the right address, you're going to bring a lot of them down dead. 12 gauge, I would not recommend a 12 gauge just for the fact that it's kind of like killing flies with a hammer. Yeah. There's no need to do So then we just work them into, the different things like that. It's like, what feels comfortable to you? Let's look at all of these. Let's go out and shoot a couple, see what you tell me. It doesn't matter. I've had a lot of people come to the club. Oh, I really want this gun. Okay, well, why don't you try this one as well? And they go home with a different gun that they thought they were coming from just because they had never shot them before. And our business plan has always been try it before you buy it. Unless you've been on the same vehicle for 50 years, when you go try to buy a car, you're going to try to test drive a few of them. So that's what we believe in doing.
What you're really telling me is you're helping us acquire a broader perspective about the whole, to use a highfalutin term, the gestalt of our shooting experience. We want it's part of its lifestyle, part of its philosophy, part of its practicality, and all those things. I get it. And a lot of times we don't take all of those into account, and we're unhappy. The gun may shoot great, but it's ugly. Or it's too pretty. Like you said, I'm not going to take this on a chucker hunt because it's going to fall off a cliff with me.
Right. What we do is when we do this, we really like to get them to go out and shoot. And if I have time to go with them, I'll work with them a little bit to make sure the gun fits where they need to be. I had a guy come in about a month or so ago, and he's like, "Oh, I just having all kinds of trouble with that." "Oh, well, let me see you mount the gun." And I'm like, I know you've seen some bad people mounting before, but this guy was unbelievable. So I fixed his mount and got it where he felt comfortable. We went out and shot skeet, and he shot like 23 out of 25. He said, "I have never hit this many targets in my life." And just showing him the simple way to actually fix his mount. It might have cost me a gun sale, but I know down the line he's going to come back when he decides he wants to buy another gun. But it's just the simple things usually go a long way. And when you leave my driveway, if you're coming here, I want you to make sure that when you're leaving my driveway, that's what you wanted. We're not talking to you anything. One of my new employees goes, "Oh, I talked so-and-so into buying a gun." No, we don't do that here. You make the decision. We're leading you up to what you feel comfortable with.
I love it. Let's get more practical because we talk a good game, all of us do, about patterning our gun before the season or our new gun or new loads or whatever. Walk me through a simple patterning process, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what we're looking for when we actually pull the trigger.
Well, what I tell people, this is what I would like to do. And you literally are, once you shoot that gun, like you're going to be hunting.
Yeah.
You can sit there and you can put them on sandbags and you can do all of that stuff, but that's not how you hunt with that gun. Right? So what you're going to do is go, we're going to use a really simple outdoor that literally gets up like 5 yards in front of you. All right. So I want you to move, mount, and shoot that gun like you're hunting at that target. Okay, so when you're doing that, are you shooting over the top of everyone? And this is something that you have to have somebody help you with.
Yeah.
Are you shooting over the top of that? Are you behind it? Are you clipping off the right side? Are you clipping off the left side? And you do that a handful of times. All right, and I'm talking, as many as a dozen times to be able to figure out, okay, is this gun shooting where I'm looking? Because it doesn't matter where it shoots, because if it doesn't shoot where you look, it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's really what I'm telling people to do is I want you to get comfortable to where that gun shoots. I've had people that bought or come in with really pretty guns, and they're like, "Oh, this is such a pretty gun," but the guy can't shoot it. It just fits him so horribly, he can't shoot it. You can do a few other things. You can actually put the patterning paper up at home with some cardboard and make a little X in it and just move, mount, and shoot it. Don't shoot it like a rifle.
How far away? Yeah.
There's many different rules of thumb with this. We usually use about 16 yards, and we usually use something like that, a tighter choke. And the reason is because you want to really see where that pattern is going. And there's a reason we don't carry any inexpensive guns here, because the nightmares that come with those are the ones that really scare me, where shooting something 16 yards away and it's 1.5 feet high and to the right. I'm like, that can't be. Let me try it. Holy cow. I don't know if these barrels, actually ran under somebody's truck or something, but it was like, geez.
I only learned about regulating two barrels a few years back, but apparently this is quite a problem. Can you explain to us what an unregulated pair of barrels is actually doing? It's uneven. You tell us.
Well, the biggest thing with that is you want both of the barrels to shoot where you're looking, or at least in the same spot. So, some of the really high-end guns have their barrels are split, which means they're not attached. And at the edge of the barrel, where the chokes is at the far end of the gun, they call it a hanger. And you can put a different hanger on these guns to be able to change the point of impact. So that way, both of the barrels shoot exactly the same spot. They have a 6 hanger or a 5 hanger or whatever the deal is. You can do all of that. But when they regulate the gun, they're supposed to have them when you're shooting at, I think it's 35 yards or I can't remember the exact yardage. Somebody out there is going, hey, he's an idiot. It's so many yards. Well, you could be right there. And what they try to do is get those to be able to shoot 50-50 right in the middle at, if it's a field gun, kind of 50-50 at X amount of yards to make both of those barrels go in the right spot. If they don't, they do different ways of doing this, and they regulate the barrels, as you say. Sometimes it's how they seat them. There's a lot of different things they do. It is not something that I mess with. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
If it's off, I send it back.
Yeah, exactly. Just to be clear, take any 2 pieces of pipe, everybody, lay them next to each other, and presume that you got it right, and then look at it. They're always off, up or down, out or in, toe out, to use a car expression. There's always going to be a variation unless you're really careful about that stuff, and that's what we're talking about here.
And if you look at an over and under or a side by side, it's over and under is probably harder because of the way that you look at the bottom barrel. It literally goes straight back into your shoulder.
Yeah.
Well, the top barrel does not. The top barrel is where, we tell people that you usually want to shoot the bottom barrel first because it's going to come straight back. If you shoot the top barrel, you're going to have a little more muzzle jump. Well, if that's the case, you need to regulate those 2 barrels so they're going to go in the same spot, because it doesn't look, if you look at them, they're kind of straight, but it's physically impossible to have those 2 exactly straight and then have them shoot in the same spot, because one is higher than the other. It's not going to happen.
Some philosophy majors will know about the conundrum of Schrodinger's cat.
Right.
Look it up. Everybody look it up. But the same thing is true with a double-barrel gun. They can they can only be spot on, literally spot on, in one place at one distance because it's a geometry problem. Okay, enough about that. We got to wrap it up, but I want you to leave us, Dave Fiedler with Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, with one single piece of advice about taking care of your shotgun literally right after we've put the dog up, done the tailgate check, watered him, put him in the box. Now it's the gun's turn. What's the one thing that we probably ought to do, and maybe we don't do it?
I think the biggest thing would be wipe your gun off. Obviously, you want to make sure it's empty. But, I own a couple guns that have my thumbprints on them because I wasn't smart enough years ago to be able to wipe it off, because especially in the beginning of the year, you might be a little sweaty, you're a little bit of work to be able to put the dog away, doing all this stuff. So you're packing it all away. So you grab your gun, you're going to throw it in the sleeve. All right. Well, you should have something with you. And I'm assuming some of your sponsors sell the same thing that we do. It's kind of almost a rag that is covered with a preventive. So you wipe off any of your fingerprints that are on there. Do that each time, and when you pull the gun back out, you're going to have a much happier gun because it's not going to have my thumbprints on it or your thumbprints on it.
Yeah. I like to pretend that it's usually a bloody thumbprint, but that doesn't happen quite often enough in my hunting camp. But yeah, because what we're talking about is effectively corrosion, aren't we?
Correct. And it's amazing. An old friend of mine, he was a hospital administrator, and I swear to God, this guy must have oozed toxic chemicals because every gun he owned literally ate off the bluing. And I had the same one gun that he had, and mine was, and I shot way more than he did, but his was just, I don't know what he did or what his makeup was, but it literally was. I said, Paul, you need to wear gloves because you are oozing something that's toxic.
Wow.
So between the elements out there and what the human body produces through your fingers, definitely wipe your gun off. That's the easiest way. Obviously, make sure it's safe. Wipe it off. If it's wet, if say you're hunting, and you and I have both it's been out there where it's snowing out, so your gun's a little wet. Let it dry off before you put it away, because that's another thing that'll really hurt you. If you put a wet gun into a sleeve, all you're doing is stealing that moisture up, and Mr. Rust goes, hey, I have a home. So make sure you let it dry off, then wipe it down, then put it away.
I love it. If you want to talk more about this kind of stuff with Dave, go to midvalleyclays.com, get the phone number, and let's talk shotguns. Dave, it's always fun to talk with you. Next time, hopefully it's in the field. We're at that time of year when it might happen real soon. So,
oh man, I can't wait. Dove season starts Sunday, man.
So we'll chat again soon. We've got a lot more coming up on the Upland Nation podcast. Eric Thompson, my good friend, asked a question that is worth ruminating about regarding the next generation of hunters. So we'll cover that coming up in our Handle It segment. For now, Dave Fiedler, you are dismissed. Thanks so much for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you very much for hosting me, Scott. I appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. And everybody out there, good hunting. Keep your powder dry and shoot straight.
Oh, I've been told that's what to do. And thanks to instruction from them. We're brought to you in part by TrulockChokes.com. I talked about them and the importance of patterning and all of the things that will affect your shooting accuracy. Yeah, I don't get enough shots to worry about it, but the ones I make, I want to make very well. And one way to do that is to have high quality choke tubes. TrulockChokes are manufactured right there in Wiggum, Georgia, from U.S. produced steel and the tightest tolerances that you can get out of that state-of-the-art CNC equipment. Their quality control program is second to none. If you're missing too many birds, but you don't think you are, there's probably a hole in your pattern. And I'll tell you, there's only one way to fix that. Better choke tubes. Add another bird to the bag on every hunt. TrulockChokes.com. And you spell that TRULOCK. TrulockChokes.com. And Flick did another 6 miles alongside the electric motorcycle today. He is getting fit and finished. And one of the key ingredients in his conditioning program is his diet. 30% protein, 20% fat, the right kinds of both in Pro Plan Sport dog food. You want to learn more about all of the formulations, go to ProPlansport.com. That's the Purina headquarters, if you will. You'll learn a little bit more about the science involved in this. They have more folks doing research on dog health and performance than anybody else. There's a reason most field trial and hunt test champions are fed Purina Pro Plan Sport. Learn what it is. Go to ProPlansport.com. Eric Thompson, thank you. Hope to see you in Montana later this season as well. This is our Handle It segment, and Eric, in answer to a question I asked on social media a while back, asked his own question. And I thought it was worth passing on the question and then at least my take. Eric asks, what are we each doing on an individual level to pass on our knowledge to the next generation of hunters? And I'm going to broaden that out a little bit to even just motivate, recruit, or identify the next generation of hunters, let alone help them become better at our chosen passion. My answer may not be the same as yours. They're all right. You do what you want that you think will help. It all will. I'm suggesting we change our way of thinking, and then we can take a first step toward recruiting a new hunter. And that is the key. Recruiting new hunters. Only hunters and shooters pay for conservation in this country. So we need the next generation to come along. Now here's where our paths may diverge. All good again. But for me, that next generation are already adults. they're the perfect target for a recruitment effort. I know. More power to you. Help out at a youth day. Get somebody's young kids going into this sport. Help out at the trap team practices at your local high school. All of that is good. Keep it up. And thank you for it. But there is actually some lower hanging fruit when it comes to hunter recruitment. And I'm glad to see that my efforts in convincing some people of that are finally paying off. And that is adults. Yeah, they have a few advantages when it comes to getting started in the bird hunting world. First off, they got disposable income. They can afford to buy ammo, fuel for a road trip. They can afford to buy a shotgun. They're mature enough to buy and train a bird dog. They're also mobile. They got a car, maybe a truck, maybe a whole bunch of other camping equipment, maybe even they are a big game hunter already. Let's turn them into a bird hunter. They understand all that. The ick factor, the lack of peer pressure. You know, by the time you become, however you define adult, you're not concerned about what your friends think about what you do. You're already over all of that. No peer pressure. If you follow the research, you realize that most adults could use another adult friend. Hey, that could be you and vice versa, a new hunting buddy. They're also looking for new experiences. Yeah, that's what bird hunting has to offer for grown-ups. They're already there. They don't need mommy to drive them to a hunting trip. They don't need a full-time job after a full day at school to buy a shotgun. Adults are that low-hanging fruit. They learn quicker. They're more mature, which transfers over to the gun safety idea. And then the bonus is they can share an adult beverage at the end of the day. I could go on and on, Eric. You know what I'm talking about. If your chosen target is younger than that, hey, everybody, more power to you. For my efforts, it's getting more people like us and the next generation younger than us, who are still adults for most of us, into the fold. That's my 2 cents worth. Eric, thanks for the question. I appreciate your allowing me to extemporize in that topic. That's the Handle It segment for this week, brought to you by Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. Thank you again, Dave Fiedler, Vandy Fiedler, Chris Greenwood, for your support. As you just learned, they all hunt. They know what works on the range or in the field. Again, let me just remind you, they are subgauge central. Call Dave Fiedler at midvalleyclays.com. Get the number, call Dave, talk about your situation when you're ready to start shopping for a new shotgun. midvalleyclays.com. Whew. Ran a little long, but I hope you don't mind. Learned a lot, had some fun. Got to talk with my good buddy. If you enjoyed it as well, please tell one other person. Maybe it's that targeted adult you want to turn into a hunter. Have them listen as well. I appreciate that. If you commented at any of the social platforms, offered a suggestion, thank you. What a community we have here. I appreciate it a lot. If you left a rating or a review, all the better. And then, of course, none of it is made possible without the generous support. Could always be more generous. Of Sage and Breaker, Purina Pro Plan Sport, Mid-Valley Clays, TrulockChokes, MidwayUSA, LandTrust.com, Pointer Shotguns, and HiViz Shooting Systems. Got some new material at findbirdhuntingspots.com. Check it out there. A great reference if you're looking for someplace new to go. Thanks again to Dave Fiedler at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. Thank you for listening. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation Podcast.